I couldn't hear all of you because I had a fan over here yelling, but I think I got most of it. So I want to thank him for his support. The short answer is I respect your wanting to vote in person. You will be able to if you choose to do that. You can either vote by mail and send it back through the mail. I was on with, for all the noise around the post office, I had what I thought was a really good, unemotional, apolitical conversation with their chief operating officer yesterday, along with a couple of his senior guys. They actually performed well in the primary. In fact, going back to John's anecdote, the worst moments in our state, forget about the national buzz around the post office, were back in March and April, where they got clobbered with illness and sadly death, and in some cases, a lot of cases, folks who had underlying health concerns who couldn't even come to work. Those days look like they're behind us. Their performance in the primary was actually very good. But if you don't believe that that's that you can trust that it'll get there on time, we're going to have, we've committed, John knows this, in each county to at least 10 secure boxes that you can drop your ballot off in. I'll bet you Morris, if I know Morris, there'll be more than that. You can also show up on election day and hand your ballot in. And failing all that, either not mailing or not dropping or not handing in, you can show up and vote. And we've asked each county. I think it was a fair, and John will probably agree with me, there was a fair amount of angst among county clerks for the primary because we only gave them 30 days notice. That was partly because we're in the height of the pandemic. Now we've put out an 81-day runway, which I think counties generally think is enough time to get up to 50% voting capacity and at least one location per township. Please. Please, hi. I mean, it's complicated. It's complicated, and you've got one memorandum of understanding bringing 12 counties together. Not easy, but listen, we got there. And I give credit to the counties, to the federal representatives. Josh is representing that group today. The good news is we've got there. And again, some of this is reimbursement, and some of this is a good chunk of its perspective. Hey, Matt. It's uneven, depends on, it depends on whether or not there's a specific agenda item that either he's got or I've got. In this case, we spoke Saturday, and I would say I was largely in listen-only mode. He was expressing his concern, and as I've said before many times, the Patterson example to me is a positive example. Some guys tried to screw with the system. They got caught. They've been indicted, and you're innocent until proven guilty, but if they're convicted, they'll pay a big price for that. He feels very passionately the way he feels. We believe the facts, particularly based on the primary that we successfully had, second highest turnout ever, that we've got the actual track record. It's not just hoping and wishing that it works well. We actually have the proof that it does. But it's uneven in terms of how often we speak. He called me. It was about vote by mail as a general matter, and he brought Patterson up. One more, sir. And again, I want to appreciate the fan who's weighing in so heavily for you. I mentioned the primary, ma'am, to answer your question. This is actually easier than the primary because in a primary, you mail ballots to registered Democrats on the one hand, registered Republicans on the other hand. But then you've got the issue of unaffiliated, folks who are not in either party, and you want to give them a chance to apply for a ballot in one of the two parties. That you had to send them an application. You don't have to do that in a general election. Everybody gets a ballot, and you could choose to either mail it, drop it, hand it, or do none of that and show up and vote. The fact of the matter is, both the track record that we had in the July primary, as well as the overall track record of vote by mail. We've got a long history of it. I've voted by mail. The president has voted by mail. This is something that's a long-standing practice. But just in case, to your question, for the primary, which we're going to do again for the general, is it used to be you have to have the ballots postmarked by election day, and it had to be received within 48 hours. In deference to the fact that there's going to be more mail-in, and there's been a lot of stress on the Postal Service, we extended that 48 hours to 7 days. And we're going to stick with that in November. So the chances are overwhelmingly high, and I can have a supremely high degree of confidence that as long as you get a postmark by Election Day, your vote's going to count. I want to thank John and Josh, to our hosts, Mayor, Tony, Senator, thank you, to the freeholders, to the representatives of some of the other counties here today. This is a big day, a long time coming. Again, to your question, it reimburses to some extent, but it's also forward-looking in another big extent. And let's hope we keep getting the federal cash that you're in there fighting for, Josh, and we can have more days like this. Thank you all. Tony, see you. Good luck.